Hey, just wanted to start this new series. So, I see the plight that a lot of young men are having these days, in the dating world. I know that I had to go through a lot of things on my side of it as well. So, what I wanted to do is bring my wife on and us actually just share a little bit of insight, some of the things that we've learned along the way. So, I just wanted to showcase our inaugural episode of Saturday with Bebe.
Baby.
I love it. So this week's question is, how would you find a wife in 2026? You have any advice for young guys? Like, what are some things that you think they should be staying away from when it comes to women? What are some things you think they should be looking for? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think if you are looking for a wife, you first have to be a husband. And
I definitely agree there.
I think a lot of conversation has a lot to do with a woman being the ideal whoever she needs to be. But I've yet to hear a lot of conversation about a man being who he needs to be. And you know this. It takes a long, hard path to be that person, to even know what to look for in a wife. So I think it all starts there. It all starts with you being somebody that you would make a good husband, then looking for a good wife.
Yeah, a couple of things kind of on that point. I think anybody really needs to be what it is that they're even looking for. Like a guy who wants some top shelf woman who looks amazing, is doing all these things, is, caring and cares, for him and his kids and all this. But it's like he's still living at his mom's house. He can't, he doesn't have a car. And he does, no Roth 401k.
Right.
It's like, what do you mean, right?
Yeah.
So if you want something, you also got to be something,
Yeah.
you know?
That's perfectly said. And specifically with just the weight of what is a husband, what it means to lead a household, you have to make sure you are that in order to find who you're trying to who you're looking for. So I think it all starts with, your pathway of making sure you are the person that can be a leader, who can be trusted to have followers, because that's what your family is. You're the head of the household and your wife is following your guidance. And it's the most important things, because no matter what happens in your household, it all falls on your shoulder, whether it's the success of the highs or the lows of the lows. So it all starts with that pathway of making yourself be the top pick, and whatever that means, and just your fitness being elite, your finances being on point, your moral, like whatever moral code that you want to live by, you have to figure out what that means for you. You have to have who you are as that total package in order to then go find who you feel like is a total package. Now, for women to be chosen to be wives, it's hard, specifically in the modern world that we live in, where a lot of women are told to just wait, or, you have so much time in the world to be chosen or to get married.
Who's telling them that?
Social media, I think that's the biggest part, is social media telling us, because we know this. There's not a lot of happy, married, long-lasting love that is displayed on social media. It's usually that fast, quick romance, burn, quick, and like that fiery passion, and then they blow up, and then that toxicity. That's mostly what you see out there, and that's what young women are, trying to. They're shadowing, basically. They're
Right.
seeing what's on Instagram, what's on social media, and then they're trying to follow that, and they follow that for a lot of years until they're too old or not the ideal pick of the litter, so to speak. And then they go back and try to backtrack and try to figure out where they went wrong. And where you went wrong is you let so much time pass in before you figure out what you really want. So I say to young women, always try to figure out what you want. If you want a family, and eventually you do want to have kids, you do want to have that family, you can't put that off. You can't put off that until whatever time. Just even if you see society say women can have kids at 40.
There's too many women going to college for a communications degree, getting $40,000 worth of debt, and then trying to work for 2-3 years, and then starting to consider that, hey, actually, I do want to have kids. Exactly. I do want to get married. Yes. By that time, now you're 30, and the track you've been on doesn't coalesce with the track that you're trying to be on.
Yes.
So, it's all really about you knowing from the jump at least the rules to the game, and knowing that some things come with things. Like, okay, great. Maybe you didn't know this, but now here it is that maybe you're paying on that side.
Right.
So it's like trying to make sure you're making the right decisions for yourself to being on the track that you want to be on.
Right. And also, for when it comes to picking, you should allow the people in your life that are trusted. We don't have parents, but if we did, somebody that is like a trusted adult, somebody that we look up to that can vet for you.
Right.
I think a lot of people choose on their own and expect like them to have like the perfect finder vision. Like you don't. You probably don't. Like you've lived the life that you've lived. You chose wrong before. Like what's to say that you won't choose wrong again? It helps to vet. It helps to have people around you that are vetting the people that are entering your life, that can see things that you may not see. And when it comes to men, a lot of them get blindsided by just a girl being nice to them for the moment. That's not helpful when you're trying to make that girl your wife.
Right.
Because when you're talking about marriage, and I talk about marriage in the long term of what marriage is, not that we can just eventually get a divorce. Like that's the quick pass on what people throw out there. No, marriage is a lifelong commitment, and you're choosing that person through the good, the bad, the ugly. You're choosing them at their lowest, you're choosing them at their highest, and all that can happen in a split second. It can happen over a course of a couple of years. So for the long haul, you have to make sure you are vetting the person that can sustain and you can get through all the ups and downs with. And a lot of men, they get blindsided by the fresh, the shiny, the new, or like when they're deprived from that type of love for so long, like when they do get that hint, they move too fast on it.
Real quick, one thing that I'd say into that, we need to talk to him a couple of things on what it looks like to vet. But what I would tell young men, really anyone, because we see a lot of people of all ages where I don't agree with some of the choices that they make when it comes to this. When I was considering you to be my wife, one of the biggest things that I loved about you was the fact that you respect me. You see, there's so many things that people just think when they talk about marriage and like social media and all this or that. Like you could have the prettiest woman in the whole world. If she doesn't respect you, that's going to eat at you every day. The words that she chooses to say, how she raises and rears your children, and what maybe they say to you. See, kind of like what Bebe was talking about earlier. When you're talking about what you have to do as a man in this world to provide, you might not get that full picture until it's reality, right? When you're out on your own, when you're out of your mom's house and you're providing for yourself, you start to get a little bit of that sense on it. But then when you actually have, a woman who wants to be under your covering, you are needing to protect her in this world, provide for her, and then you start even thinking about your children, every day you're killing yourself out there in this world. But what are you getting in return? Are you getting a happy home? Are you getting, food made and your appreciation for what you're doing? There's a lot of things to look at, but the number one thing I would say for a man, making sure that you are always getting respect. And particularly, even what I loved about you most is above respect, that being the baseline. Above respect is adoration. You actually, feeling that feel of wow, like he does so much for us, or he does so much for me. And because of that, I want to assure him that I'm doing as much as he is. Even though I wasn't asking you to do that, just the mere fact of like, the house always is clean, or I want to make sure that you have your lunch. I'm doing all these things. Like, you are showing that you're putting just as much effort in as I am in your own wickets. And even I would say that's something to talk to for the ladies out there. It's not about it being a one-to-one. Because I think there was even a point where you were a little caught up, trying to match me in what I'm providing or giving, when that's not even what the real competition or anything like that was. Like, is there anything to say on that one?
I mean, I think it should be a one-to-one while you're dating. I think, having your own, doing your own is important for
That's
women.
true. Yes, my thought more so onto the marriage aspect on it, but correct. I think the investment, time, money, because even when we're starting from the beginning of things, I think that's part of how entitlement on any side can really ruin the structure of things.
Right.
Like, the whole big craze out there of how there's many women, social media would say, that aren't going to go on a coffee date or things of that nature. That's a little short sighted into the sense that a man is having to put so much upfront capital just for us to even have the conversation, just for us to even see if we agree on different things. Why not have the initial be low investment on both sides where we can actually have a solid conversation freely and then explore things from there, you know?
I don't disagree, but I will say men have to stop trying to change women. That's the whole point of vetting. If a woman tells you that she doesn't do coffee dates, she doesn't do coffee dates. Move on. It's
Right.
not in the chasing or trying to change people. And it all comes back to the respect. It all comes back to, you know, dating somebody that you see a lifelong pathway with. You can't go into something thinking you can change somebody or that eventually they'll be the person that you're looking for, or over time they'll learn to adapt to how you want to be loved. Like, it doesn't work that way. You start out how you want your expectations, you keep and maintain that consistency. So if you're going out and you see these women and they meet the physical wickets of what you're looking for, but when you start talking to them and they're telling you that they only do dinner dates and they only do dinner dates at certain restaurants and this and that, if you choose to still proceed with that, then that's your fault. That's on you. That's up to you, and you'll deal with the consequences that come from that. Because some men end up marrying those women, and then your life is what your life is.
Right.
So I think women have the right to choose whatever pathway they want and however they want to go about things, because there are men that's willing to do that for them. That's why they have that expectation. But to be realistic, and we're talking about men finding wives, you have to be able to call out what that is and then move accordingly. You have to be able to see that women or people in general will show you who they are. And if you're not if you're not paying attention to that, then that is ultimately your fault, and it's going to be on you in the end. And specifically, if you make a commitment, like you sign a lease with somebody,
Right.
before you really like get to know them, because people have done that. We know people have done that. Like, you don't make those type of commitments with anybody before you really see that they're on the same moral code of you, their ethics is the same, or at least aligned with what you find ethically good. So
I'd say so. Meeting it in the middle a little, though. Kind of like with this podcast. I'd like for us to be able to potentially get across to a young woman out there that maybe she thinks what she thinks just solely based off of her environment of what's
right.
around her. So, yes, I agree that in the dating world, particularly, you can only control what you can control. So, if you say that you'd like to go out with her and get to know her, and she tells you that I only go to top restaurant number one, okay, great. Now it's up to you to decide if is this worth it or not. Do I want to proceed that way? Like you said, that's correct. However, I do think that you can change people somewhat, because people get changed in my eyes often. So it's just on the side of, like, right now what we're doing is just more educational. Maybe a woman hearing, well, maybe, that's a little short-sighted of me. Okay,
yeah,
maybe
but
I'm
I'm not in the business of changing adults. I think if you're setting your ways, you're setting your ways. So
adults is loose though.
Women will realize things a lot more quicker
Mm-hmm.
because they have less time to fix and correct things. And I think if they don't, because most women I've met, they don't want to change, and they're
Yeah.
okay at least in the time being until they really hit a point in their life where they really start to see that, oh shit, maybe I chose wrong or I went left, and then they try to evaluate. But they're okay with their life how it is.
Yeah, the big thing when you're talking dating, At the end of the day, if you can't control others. So
Exactly.
just
That's what I'm
knock them
saying.
off the list.
That's why, with the topic, choosing wives.
Right.
Those are not wives.
Right.
Those are just women that want to live for their now. And that's perfectly fine. Like if they start out and they know that, they want to go be a lawyer, they want to go to, like, that's their pathway, let them live their life. That's not a wife, because eventually you want, children. You want your wife to be home with your kids somewhat. You want them to have that priority be you, your kids, and your family. And if that's not, going into it is not their priority, and their priority is my work, I want to go on my vacations and all the worries that come
I'll
with it.
say not that, like, well, we're merging a couple of things. So I'll say yes, when we're talking about how a woman showcases herself as if she is a wife, or obviously your priorities are a little messed up and you're wanting people to spend on you, do this, do that, and that's all you care about, great. I do think there are different paths of someone, they could still be a wife, but obviously not going to be like a stay-at-home mom. But even that, you as a man need to know what it is you want and then make sure that that's what you're getting. Because sure, marriage could work, she wants to work, you guys are going to push your kids off or whatever that looks like, or you want to do daycare because you want her to have the career she's always wanted, whatever that looks like, great. But if you want a stay-at-home wife or a more traditional lifestyle, then you need to know that up front and then vet then accordingly.
Correct. And that's why we started with the conversation. Men, you have to be the husbands that you want somebody to be a wife to. It all starts with you. You are the leader of the household. You have to make yourself be that. And you have to make yourself be choosable too. You're doing choosing too, but
what are some things that make them choosable? Working
out, but having a pathway for yourself. Everybody, there's a time period in everybody's life where they're just floundering. They're trying to figure out what really is their path, what really is going to stick. Like jobs comes and goes, careers comes and go. But what are those long lasting plans? Like how much money do you want to have in savings by this point in your life? Like, do you have house goals? Like, are you trying to be moving around? What family values you want? By a certain age, well, how long do you want to have kids? All that comes into regards in how you choose a woman. Specifically, you already know that women has a shorter span of how long they can have kids and how long you really want to wait for somebody to be ready to have kids. So your age limit of choosing a woman may go down based on how older you're getting per thing. Like maybe if you're 35, date another 35-year-old for a year, then get married, and then they're 37 by the time. Like you have to think logically, biologically, per like what the actual facts of life are, and then you have to work accordingly to that also. I think that's very important to always realize that there's multiple factors that goes into choosing a good partner for yourself, not just up to their looks or necessarily their personalities. You have to make sure you're making a logical decision along with an emotional decision when you're getting married.
So the big thing is basically to make sure that you're getting on the path that you want to get on and maximizing your choices. You need to make sure that you can answer this question: have I done the work? Is your mind ready for you to date? Are you emotionally capable? Then, okay, I want to maximize my ability to get the exact wife that I want. Okay, I need to make sure that I have solid income. I need to make sure that I'm working on my body. And I need to make sure that I'm speaking to the proper women. Because not every woman that I'm talking to, even if they are the look, they're the exact model that you want for your wife, well, maybe she's got a whole bunch of brain rot and literally she can't think about anything besides her life and, being who she is. That's fine, but obviously that's not going to help you have a happy life with the wife that you want, right? You don't want to have, and I'll tell you, we've done a few things onto the guy side, but I'd say onto the woman, what I would say for you to look for, you want a woman who is not selfish. It is inherently easier for a woman to be selfish in this world, And so that doesn't help you as a husband, right? It kind of plays into the fact onto the respect thing. It's easy for a woman to be selfish, which then makes her more so likely to be entitled. And when she's entitled, then all the things that you're doing, no matter how amazing or how much hard work you put in, maybe it comes off to her that that's just what you're supposed to do. And because that's just what you're supposed to do, it's not well received by you doing it. And that over time is going to breed resentment because you are working hard, you are doing a lot. And so you want someone who's going to celebrate those wins. It's going to celebrate, what you've done for the family, and particularly not look at you as, someone that's just beneath her, just doing what you're supposed to do for her to live her life, right? That's one important thing I'd say.
Right.
You got anything else? Any other thoughts?
Just putting yourself out in the right world to meet people. You can't go to a strip club or nightclub expecting to meet your wife. I mean, you could. You
What
really
are a couple
could.
places they could go? I'll tell you, I think, hot take, it took me a while. I was already grown when I found this. Guys, you got to start going to Target. I'll tell you, you got to go to Targets that are near college universities. That's where you're going to find, most likely just a wealth of individuals or, women, getting their college dorms ready and maybe have a good head on their shoulders or maybe are not corrupted yet. Shoot your shot there and start trying to, it's a numbers game, but just landing some good bids. That's one thing I'd say.
Right.
And actually, with that, I think a big thing, because actually we touched on the college portion. I'll tell you, things get much harder once, let's say you don't go to college, or let's say you do go to college and then you graduate, you still haven't found your wife. It is going to be increasingly harder for you to find your wife after college, only because of this. College is going to be one of the last times that you're going to be around a ton of women. And that goes the same way for women to men as well. Like, particularly, obviously, there's going to be a lot of women that are, kind of in that same place where you are in life. Even though, yes, maybe they have their looks and that makes them have a little bit more stature above you because you don't have any money yet. But at the end of the day, they're broke. They're getting their life started up too. But there's a wealth of them because you are all in some, there's something that's brought you guys all together. Once you go out into the world, it's like you go to work, you work with 40 people. Those are the 40 people you see. Then you go home, and once a week you go to the store. And maybe your social life, you go to a random club on Thursday and Friday, So all of a sudden, you were used to always, for your whole life, you've been around hundreds, thousands, depending on the school sizes, of people that are of, dating material or, age. And then now you're in a world where you only are around 60 people at any given time, So definitely utilizing, some of the wickets of what we said, making sure that you are who you need to be, ensuring you have a clear focus on what you want from a wife, and then maximizing your opportunities while you have them when you're around the most women. But again, it's not to say that you can't obviously still go out there and meet a woman. But the number one thing I would say, even in that, once you get out into the real world, is staying away from women that don't serve you, that don't serve the purpose of what you're looking after. And that's a whole big thing that you could get into there. But just understanding the character of the women you're speaking with, and, I would say limiting how much sex you're having with women that could potentially get pregnant and ruin your life because they're not the woman who should be your wife. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair. Also, just take your time. There's no rush, specifically for a man. There's no rush. Take your time. Build up your network. Build up your your hobbies, build up your life, build up your moral code, build up the philosophies you would like your kids to
Core
follow,
ethics.
build up your core ethics, build up your peer group, build up your friend group, build yourself up. You don't need to rush into and make a woman the center of your life. You have the time. Look into what can make you the best you, and then can go about finding a wife that way. I think a lot of energy spent chasing can be spent making sure that you are who you need to be for everybody that you're going to have under you in the future. And that a lot of emphasis needs to be placed on that. And I think once you really find out who you are, finding somebody that equally matches you will come a lot easier. If it is not forced, it's not something that you're really trying to force to be. It's not the first person that comes across your page that you're like, oh, maybe that could be. If you just take your time and date and really look, because once you're dating, and you'll see the difference between the type of woman that you went out last week versus the type of woman you go out with next month. Like, it'll give you a wide array of the different type of people. And traveling helps, figuring out there's different specifically if you go out the country, there's different women out there that can really show you that you've been lacking, you've been getting the short end of the stick when it comes to dating. So give yourself the time to explore and to really hone in what those non-negotiable are, because you should have non-negotiables. You should have things that you won't budge on. Just like women, you should have things that you don't budge on too, but you should have those set things that no matter what, the shiny the package is, that if they don't have that, then they're not your wife.
But we should all, in both sides, men and women, make sure that we're being realistic with that as well.
Exactly.
That's a big portion of it.
And I'll say, the more you add into the wickets of your life, the more out there your expectations can be. You can be the top tier of the list of men if you make yourself there, and you're choosing. You have the pickings of the litters, like. But you have to be able to understand if you lack something, then you'll get what you get. But try to build up yourself to be the best that you can possibly be, so you can have the most choices out there for yourself.
And you just said something that made me really think, guys. Some of the most important things that are really going to help you in this period, early. I'll call it 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That like decade, right? What's going to help you is, one, being able to be okay being lonely. Because you're going to be lonely. It's just a lonely period of time. While you're growing and building yourself up, you could get lost in the sauce. Sure, you have your friends, but hey, they're building their worlds too. They're building their lives. And so at the end of the day, obviously women have just a billion men at all times that will throw themselves at them no matter what they look like on Tinder, right? And you might go on your Tinder and you only got 2 women or 0, right? It happens like that sometimes. At the end of the day, going out into the world, doing what you can, great. But there are still just going to be many, many, many days where you don't have anyone to talk to, or you don't have camaraderie. And sometimes maybe that's why we come back to playing video games. That's been a kind of a joy for me, making these kind of video diaries, playing just a little old school COD. It's just soothing. I'm just doing a little something in my own world where I don't have to focus on all these other things. And it kind of has a little bit of escape. Understand that it's going to be a lonely road for a good portion of your life. And you have to just accept that, find a way to deal with it. Number 2, and this is more important. You have to learn to control your lust. Lust above anything in this world will get you in a bad spot. I'm talking about, you being places you shouldn't be, you being with people you shouldn't be, you getting people pregnant, you getting diseases, you're getting jumped because this is the love of somebody's life and it was nobody to you, or you're saying crazy things and they screenshot it and send it to your job and now you're fired. There's a billion different crazy things that could happen due to you not being able to control your lust, right? I'll tell you, you being able to control that, you going after women just when you want to, rather than it's just a insatiable need, that's going to help you as you traverse this time period in your life. All right, everyone. Well, that's the first episode. We'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye.